Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Can I get a nod if you can hear me? So wonderful. We have people trickling in, so we're going to give them a few more minutes. We don't want anybody to miss this, but it's so nice to see each and every one of you. So just bear with us. We'll get started shortly. All right, I think we are gonna get started. Let me. Hi, everyone. Welcome. On behalf of the BIPOC alumni community, we are so pleased to have you all here this evening. Before we start official programming, we'd like to just set out some ground rules that will help ensure that this evening is a success. So if you haven't already, please mute yourself and continue to stay muted through the duration of the meeting unless you're speaking. Please note that this meeting will be recorded. If you are uncomfortable being recorded, we please ask that you leave or step out at this time. Hate speech of any kind, invalidating BIPOC experiences will not be tolerated in this space. If we see this behavior within the chat, you will be removed. Please take a moment to reflect on your intention of being in this space. Our goal tonight is to create a safe environment in which people feel free to share their experiences and contribute meaningful and productive conversation. Our evening will include testimonials, demands, and solutions, and an open floor in which attendees will have the opportunity to share what is on their heart. Cherokee, I just want to make sure that we are recording. Yes? Okay. So with that, let's begin. Hi, everybody. My name is Lani Renaldo. I graduated in 2014. As you can see, that is me at my graduation. And alongside my family, I've been in the Crossroads community for almost 20 years now. Sometimes I wish I could be like the other students, the ones that went to college and never looked back. That might have made the last few stress-inducing months a bit easier. I want to take a moment to publicly say thank you to every student, former faculty member, parent that has reached out in support of this movement. In the moments where I felt absolutely done, you've given me the strength to continue. And I want to acknowledge the overwhelming love I feel knowing that there are those that believe in this cause and that believe the horrendous stories that have come to light. I see you and I appreciate you. This is not my job. I don't get paid for my labor, and I shouldn't have to explain how problematic it is that there are 6 Black people doing unpaid labor for this school. In fact, this line of business is not even remotely in my field of work, but I feel grateful to do it because I would never want a student to feel the way that I felt for so long at Crossroads. The Crossroads experience is a very different experience from many traditional schools. I've grown up feeling slightly out of place there. And when I went to college, I spent a fair amount of time unlearning the rhetoric and insane privileged thinking that I'd been accustomed to. This was never about calling people out. This event was never about stirring things up. It was about healing and holding space for the genuine emotions and experiences that the students, families, and alumni have gone through. I would know this to be true because since May, I have spoken with several families and many concerned and rightfully upset parents. I've connected with students I wouldn't have otherwise, and I have listened for hours to their worries, their ideas, their experiences, even when that meant compromising my own personal time and emotions. You can ask my very, very gracious girlfriend in the chat. I love you, babe. When you slow down and you look at what's behind this and why, there's a lot of hurt, vulnerability, and emotion. But I'm starting to feel like I'm in middle school again. Afraid and silenced, misunderstood, and wanting to run away from Crossroads. I have to say that it's a bit awkward for me to come back and look at the teachers who told me I wouldn't get into the college of my choice. By the way, I did fight on. Or that wouldn't allow me to go to a country I had dreamed of going to simply because to them, I couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time. By the way, I did end up going to Spain. It was very, very lovely. It's weird to sit here and know that there are people in the room that have committed offenses to students and truthfully uncomfortable. Almost as uncomfortable as the laundry list of microaggressions, teachers asking me how I wash my hair, a student calling my hair nappy, the white student council president trying to convince me not to run for president, and being cast as a servant or housemaid in school plays for almost 4 years in a row. I did do some searching last night on Facebook, and if you did not know, here's the proof for that. And here's one of my all-time favorite moments of my very white friend Brendan and I being cast as Indian men in turbans. Slightly questionable. But I digress. Let me pose the question. How is it that the beacon of progressive institutions is the last to have a town hall? As you can see, almost every college and high school across the country has held discussions on these issues, and we're finally having ours. Just let that sink in for one moment. Brentwood in July, USC in August, Oaks Christian in June. For those that don't know how we got here, I'll quickly recap. There have been many different versions of the experience my fellow alumni and I have had in trying to plan this event, and some of it has not been accurately reported. Much I have written in my initial open letter, but I'd like to clear up some of the timeline of events. I should mention that before event planning even started, I had spoken to Bob and Tom Nolan. My group had met with Jen Gerber of the Alumni Department, and I had multiple phone calls as well as correspondence with her. John, Johanse, Hassani, Mir, Cherokee, and I were in frequent conversation with Jen. We offered her 2 dates and deliberated for about 3 months to even settle on this date today. When the open letters came out, they were not to be vengeful, but because I truly was left with no options. It seemed like Crossroads was stalling and that Jen Gerber was put in place to be the bearer of bad news. I even posed the question, how is it that back to school plans are being made, RISE meetings are happening, and it seems harder than ever to schedule a Zoom? I've been told that Crossroads believes that we weren't responding to simple questions, but again, this is simply not true. In fact, we did the legwork and showed them the programming ahead of time. We explained to them why we wanted to record the Zoom and that all we needed from Jen was an email blast. It was to email blast an RSVP and survey. We were yet again questioned and told that we were not being responsive. Mind you, I, along Yohance and Cherokee, were being removed from email threads and kept out of phone conversations. We did turn down further communication with Bob, Mariama, and Derek after letters were released because trust had been broken. And since they had not reached out to us during the initial fight, it seemed very performative and damage control-like on their end. It took us 5 minutes to set this Zoom up and RSVP. We've received, and as of the last hour, over 400 RSVPs. The fact of the matter is this was not difficult. What was difficult was for Crossroads to accept that they were afraid of the backlash. I've always been firm in saying that until Crossroads takes a definitive stance on racism, classism, sexism, and homophobia, that nothing will change. It's much like our current State of the Union. People feel as though the rhetoric they see on TV makes it appropriate for them to act in inappropriate ways. Crossroads does this specifically by continuing to perpetuate a very toxic culture in which some people, and some white people, as shown on the screen, believe that they can gaslight and belittle BIPOC. They believe that they are excused from racist behavior, and more so, they claim they do not experience it and that racism does not exist at Crossroads. Again, this is because our leaders at this school allow this to happen. In my almost 2-hour conversation with Bob, I explained to him that while we were choosing to take control of this event so that it would not be completely controlled and doctored, that I wanted him to promote it. I wanted him to explain in the aftermath of this very touchy alumni conversation on why this matters and why we need to validate these experiences and not perpetuate a culture that allows hate speech. He said he understood and took notes. That then turned into his address to the parents. What I had hoped is that he would finally recognize alumni by name. Now, Bob said he loves me, and truthfully, I love Bob. I love several of the faculty members here. They are like my family. What I think is unfortunate is that they are allowing us to look like rebel rousers and chaos coordinators, instead of uplifting the work we've done and embracing the challenging conversations we've had. The administration rejects us. Yet when it is in their interests, care, they want to talk to us. Instead of saying that we've spoken, provided solutions, and had positive interactions, they continue the narrative that we're troublemakers. Why are we still being looked at as traitors of the school? For simply speaking up for what we believe in, for asking for decency, and to stand in this community with dignity. You know, the NFL gets mad at Colin Kaepernick. Many called Martin Luther King radical. And sometimes you have to be radical for change to come. And while my alma mater may be turning its back on me, I know that we stuck up for the right cause. What's hurtful to me now and sad is that there's gossip coming from other students saying that I'm not wanted on campus for being too outspoken. And then to further find out that Mariama has said that we've asked for Crossroads not to promote this event is, again, simply not true and disappointing, because those remarks are slanderous. Crossroads needs to admit they dropped the ball here. This should have been a partnership, not a delegation to a white woman that clearly did not want to help make this happen. The school was not prepared for this conversation. The school did not want this conversation to happen, because if they did, the energy with which it was met would have been excited, helpful, productive, not avoidant, sheepish, and deflective. So now we're here, very the event, I imagine, but nevertheless, an important moment. One of the most important things my late drum instructor and Dugu Chancellor said to me was, own your time. I was gearing up to open for Halsey, and I was having trouble with her management team, and he spent an hour grilling me about how I needed to protect my energy and time. And I went home, and much like right now, I cried to my mom, because I thought he was scolding me for taking an opportunity. I've since realized he was teaching me the most important lesson of my life, and I hope I can impart it onto you today. You cannot help an institution that does not want to be helped, much like you cannot control people, places, or things. Sometimes that's hard to embrace. I think for a lot of people here, it's hard to grapple with the fact that our institution that we love, teachers, faculty, admin that we love, have not always been the best that they can be. It might be hard to understand why, and it might be difficult to accept. This is okay. At a certain point, though, we as individuals have to understand that our energy, time, and emotions must be put at the forefront of any movement. Help in places that will uplift and celebrate your work. Find people that want to be helped, and do not waste your time or energy on people or places that do not want to protect you. Find moments to experience joy and allow yourself time to rest. This is taxing work, and I'm not just speaking to BIPOC, I'm speaking to our allies. Find your voice and find your moments. Pick battles wisely and know when you've done all that you can. That doesn't mean that we failed here, but we've exhausted ourselves. The stress, the panic, all of these emotions that the school contributes to. Ask yourself, is it worth it? To me, not right now. I hope that there are students that will continue to fight and speak up for what they believe in, even if it's controversial, radical, or otherwise unpopular. Taking a stance for what you believe in does not have to be seen as negative. Going against what we've been told our school is not wrong. How do we think critically or commit ourselves to a life of justice without calling out hypocrisies and wrongdoings anyone or any institution has committed? To the white families, to the current students, to the families that have the capacity to speak up, do so. Be loud and unapologetic. Be affirmed in your experiences. You know, I often hear from people that they think I'm so brave for doing this and that I'm so fearless, but I don't see it that way. I see it as my duty, and more than that, my right to examine any situation I feel unsure of. For those that knew me in high school, I will say I was a bit louder, a bit more explosive, and for the most part, always for the right cause, for the most part. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to refine that, to come with ease and maturity, and to know when the truth needs to be told. That moment is now. What has stuck with me the most through this is one phrase: you've given me my voice back. I had a parent tell me this, and I realized that those are the people that I was doing it for. For the parents and students that are currently voiceless, the families that are just waiting for their kids to get out of Crossroads so that they can finally speak, because if they speak up now, they will be met with retaliation. I hope that Crossroads sees that their model of instilling fear onto others in form of retaliation, holding contracts, bad-mouthing, restricting opportunities from students would not stop me, and it shouldn't hinder anyone else. For a school that asks for feedback, you truly do not seem to want the kind that goes against what you believe. I am so proud of the families that are in this room today, for the stories that have been shared, and for the resilience you all have. To the kids that inspire me, and to the few people standing beside me in this moment and in this movement, I am really grateful for the community we've built, even if alum are not always viewed as priority. Thank you all for your time. Next, you'll hear from Cherokee, Washington.
Thank you, Lani. I think that was said it all. Welcome everybody. To those of you who are just joining us, please make sure that you're muted. We mentioned in the chat that this is going to be recorded, but make sure you're muted and you're comfortable with being recorded. And let us know if you have any questions in the chat. So I know most of you, but my name is Cherokee, and I'm an alum from 2013, and my breath is a little bit shallow today because this is very heavy, so forgive me if I'm a little bit, not nervous, but a little bit jumpy in my voice. So I'm gonna take my time with all this. I'm a former employee of Crossroads, and Lani and I were there together as students. I was there with a few of you who may be on this call, and forgive me too, I'm checking the chat as we're talking, but sorry, give me 1 second, let this person in. So I worked at Crossroads as a volleyball coach. Some of you may have had me as a coach. Some of you may have seen me around campus, and we've worked together. And I also worked as an administrative assistant for diversity initiatives. So that's kind of the backstory of why I'm here, why I'm doing this. I'm here for Lani, I'm here for all the alumni and the current students that we are trying to hold in this space and uplift. So with all that said, I have a statement prepared that I'm just gonna go ahead and read. So again, forgive me if it's a little bit shaky, but this is some heavy stuff, so just bear with me. Before I share my thoughts, I want to read a quote from Ibram Kendi's book, Stamped from the Beginning. And I paraphrased a little bit. Historically, there have been three sides to this heated argument around race in America. A group we can call the segregationists have blamed Black people themselves for racial disparities. A group we can call anti-racists have pointed to racial discrimination. A group we can call assimilationists has tried to argue for both. Both segregationist and assimilationist ideas, sorry, somebody's doing something outside my window. Both segregationist and assimilationist ideas have been wrapped up in attractive arguments to seem good. And in wrapping their ideas in goodness, segregationists and assimilationists have rarely confessed to their racist public policies and ideas. But why would they? Racists confessing to their crimes is not in their self-interest. It's been smarter and more exonerating to identify what they did and said as not racist. Intentional or not, the message we're receiving as a BIPOC community from Crossroads and other predominantly white institutions, or PWIs, is loud and clear. Administrations are choosing to work smarter and more strategically, not harder and more empathetically, to eradicate systemic racism in schools. Apparently, it's better to be an assimilationist, practice reckless performative allyship, and let racist rhetoric run amok than to answer the simple century-old demands of BIPOC. The decision to repetitiously make the same mistake over and over again without genuinely considering critique is a choice. We often see this in sports. A lot of coaches say that when you perpetually make the same mistake to the point where it seems like you're not trying to correct yourself anymore, the mistake then becomes a selfish choice that may affect your teammates' well-being, the outcome of a competition, and your coach's trust in your ability to support others. In the same way, it's a choice to stay racist, and Crossroads has made it very clear that it wants to keep that title. As an alumna and a former employee, I've witnessed this mistake-heavy assimilationist mindset in action. As the first administrative assistant for DEI initiatives, I was excited to help Crossroads become more inclusive, more diverse, and supportive of BIPOC who walk the out. I was excited to use the expertise I gained at Whitman College as a rhetoric and psychology double major, a diversity director, an author of a senior thesis focused on Black women's rage through Beyonce's visual album Lemonade, and an athlete who experienced firsthand racism and kneeling in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick on the volleyball court. I was excited to support the students who looked like me by offering them a safe space through my presence in various realms of campus. And I was excited to use our motto, reason soundly, question thoughtfully, and put it back into practice. I fought hard, really hard, to be my full self, but to my disappointment, I couldn't, and I was told to stay in my lane despite my unique interdisciplinary academic knowledge and professional potential. Instead of raising up an intelligent Black woman who was a product of this very school, I was silenced and gaslit in various spaces by many, many colleagues. One space including a 3-day employee DEI training program where we were talking about this exact thing. At this point, I have no other words to describe my time working at Crossroads other than confusing and hurtful. With the passing of our communal leaders, such as Chadwick Boseman, John Lewis, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and all the other countless Black and brown lives taken by white supremacy, there's a timely changing of the vanguard, as power is shifting into the hands of new generations, as it does in every iteration of this age-old fight for liberation. We must collectively and willingly place leadership of the revolution in the minds and hearts of young people such as ourselves. Everyone has a seat at the revolutionary table is what I call it. But why not let young people such as ourselves, college students, alumni, especially alumni, with all of our intersectional identities, collective rage, expertise, and experiences with oppression to lead the way. We are the new vanguard that's here to publicly learn, hold each other accountable, and hold everybody else in space as much as we can with love, patience, and free time, as Lani said. We're here to carry on the legacy of our ancestors who've paved the way for our freedom and for the right to fight for what they can't fight for anymore. It's our turn to radicalize the babies, as I like to say, and teach them how to be empathetic, anti-racist, and culturally competent. Now, don't get it twisted. Like Lani said, this is a group of alumni who are very educated, extremely strong, undeniable, kind, and Black, which is America's worst nightmare, especially when it's led by a Black woman like Lani. We're the future donors and the future parents of future students of Crossroads. But more importantly, we're not here to play around anymore. Excluding alumni from this conversation and treating us the way that Crossroads did with disrespect, inauthenticity, confusion, and stalling is disheartening and, quite frankly, exhausting. We don't have all the answers, but we're at an intersection of student and survivor that is unique and important to the revolutionary table. Either you get with the program or you stay racist. And at this point, whatever Crossroads wants to do is fine by us because we're too tired to offer anything other than our voices. And when we did, we were still met with resistance. Now we choose to support fellow students and families through our underground railroads that you'll never find the maps to. We're not giving them up anymore. It's up to you all as admin to either be humble in your journey to becoming truly anti-racist or continue participating in a white supremacist system as a progressive school. From the recent town hall that focused on an important conversation around anti-Semitism and the Black community that's super complex and needs more than an afternoon to unpack, to the countless other incidents here and at other schools like Brentwood that we've caught wind of recently, Crossroads has to do better by thinking of all students who have a personal stake in these discussions, not just white students when they have something to say. But God forbid a Black student asks for an African-American history course and everybody flips their shit. I'll end with this final quote from Kendi. The title "Stamped from the Beginning" comes from a speech that Senator Jefferson Davis gave on the floor of the US Senate in 1860. The future president of the Confederacy objected to a bill funding Black education in Washington, D.C. This government was not funded by Negroes nor for Negroes, but by white men for white men, Davis lectured his colleagues. Thus, the inequity of the white and Black races was, quote, stamped from the beginning. Like America's attitudes towards Black people, Crossroads has been stamped from the beginning in its functioning as a PWI. Regardless, it's time to get this shit right. Either you want to reconcile with or concede to the truth, but time is ticking and we need an answer. So now we are going to hand it off to Johanse.
Thank you very much, Cherokee. Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Johanse Serrant from the Crossroads class of 1999. I am going to echo a few sentiments and add a few things in here. My job here basically is to, in a sense, be kind of the predictor, if you will. More than enough people probably on this panel will let you know that I probably told them ahead of time how some of the conversations were going to go, what people were going to say, and quite frankly, I knew that we were going to end up here with this kind of energy. I hoped that we weren't. I was looking forward to other people stepping in quicker, but it's not really that much of a surprise. I've come back to Crossroads over the course of about 20 years between tutoring, teaching, stubbing, and all of that. And I've had numerous conversations with admin, with parents, with all kinds of things. And initially I felt the same way. I felt maybe the school just had a blind spot. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that. But then the things that I started noticing, it come to find out, these were brought up numerous times before. Firstly, I want to start also on this idea of emotions and the emotional toll of the work, also the emotions that you might see on display. When I told some people a few years ago, in terms of the things that I noticed with regards to Crossroads and how it has changed and hadn't changed, especially when I brought it to admin or other people, I was told, oh, you know, don't say that, don't say it like that. You're being too angry, you're being too forceful, you're coming with this energy. There have been questions about the energy that we were coming with to have this town hall, all of these things of how I need to be careful about what I say. And yet a lot of the communication that seems to be coming from the school is very emotional. They're outraged, they're disappointed, they're overwhelmed, they're struggling, they're frustrated, all of these things. And all of us came to them and said, let us do this thing. All of us have contributed to the school in one way or another. And we're here because we care about the school. That's why we came back. And we know the potential of the school, and we know the influence that the school has, which is why we made sure to have these conversations and why Peace was started 20 years ago, because we knew that the students around us needed to know these things because they were going to grow up and their parents were going to hear these things. Please let me make sure to let you guys understand that Black at Crossroads, that Instagram page started after we told them that we wanted to have this town hall. We have nothing to do with that. It sprung up all on its own. We essentially tried to preempt that happening. I'm not really too keen on this idea of the school saying that they're for Black Lives Matter, and then I tell them that they have a continuous issue with Black boys falling in an academic hole. I'm not really too, I'm not really feeling the sincerity there when people are telling me in one breath that I'm seeing a small slice of the problem, and then other admin are saying that they do notice that there's an academic issue that seems to happen with Black boys in 7th grade. And normally that's when I got called in to help. And if there are any parents here that I've worked with, you've probably heard me say, when your son gets to 7th grade, you might need to call me. And I made sure to keep up this system for a good number of years before I became especially confident in saying that, and before I even brought it to the administration. Some of you are gonna ask, did they know? Yes, they knew. There's lots of things that Crossroads has been aware of, and I've slowly started finding that out pretty much in the last month. Names, people are very worried about people being called out. I can tell you from my perspective, there's only a handful of names of mine that are going to be coming to mind, which are Morgan Schwartz, his wife Christina, Roxanne, and of course, you know, we cannot, you know, miss the fact that the boss of the school, Bob Riddle. But the other people that I'm naming are not there anymore. They're retired. They do not, as far as I know, have professional issues at stake. But there are many people who, quite frankly, some of my elders that are still there or have been there long enough to know that there was certain kind of energies that were at the school that were there way longer than they should have been. It seems to me that some of the directives, at least for what's being said from the head of the administration and the communication of what is being cared about, is not being directed to those underneath. So these directives are not seeming to fall down from the performative aspect to the administrative aspect. Let's please keep in mind, these are people's jobs, okay? So whether or not we come with a motion to say complaints or fears or issues, someone's job was to fix it or to look at it and figure it out. Few quick things. As I told a few people, I don't really even consider this as much a town hall as I consider it a post-mortem, okay? We are here looking at the body of the institution that was dead on arrival when we wanted to have just the discussion about one of the most important moments in our history, some of which we learned in our history classes, a lot of which we didn't, but enough of which we did to where when the time came for Crossroads to respond, it was silent, flatlined. And so right now we can figure out, do we want to, or how can this body resurrect? Can it resurrect itself? And people have said, do you have solutions? Yes, we do. A lot of people have asked, why are we doing this? What are we doing this for? Little do they know they're coming with the exact same energy every time we had an assembly. Why are we doing this? What is this for? Nothing's gonna change, yada, yada, yada. We had a good speaker, we're gonna talk about it, cool. The action is now really upon the community or the Crossroads community, as far as I'm concerned. We worked on a lot of these and had this done a long time ago. Lastly, our educational institutions create our reality, okay? So we've all said that racism, sexism, all of the isms, all the homophobia, the stereotypes, that all of these issues would be conquered if we do better in our education. So here we are. We're at one of the most powerful educational institutions in Los Angeles that seems to have not only the same problems as the rest of the private school community here, but private schools across the nation. You read some of the narratives on Black at Crossroads, you almost couldn't tell the difference between some of the schools on the East Coast or anywhere else. So with that, that's all that I will say for now. I'll present more later. I believe that Mir Harris was supposed to go next, but she's not able to join us. So now we will pass it on to John Hill.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to turn the mute off. Sorry. Anyway, okay. I want to say, hey, Lani, I love you to death. Cherokee, I love you to death. I'm very proud of you guys. You guys are very, very, very strong and courageous. All right, so let me get a couple of these words out real quick, okay? First off, I want to thank everybody who has taken the time this afternoon to join this town hall meeting. This is meant to be a safe place for everybody involved, and I'm sure everybody here has the same intention. It really does take a village to raise a child, right? As a member of this village, the Crossroads community specifically, I never want to leave a child left on the outside. I never want to see a child left behind. My opinions or concerns, for the most part, aren't reflective of my past and personal experience on campus per se, but when I see a number of different Black students, both past and present, express adamant discontent, fear, a lack of support, and a particular disregard to their student experience, I feel a moral obligation to stand in solidarity with them to the most of my ability. So here we are. I don't really want to discuss statistical stuff. I'd rather discuss the value in sincerity. Things just hit a little different when you mean it, and there's absolutely no way around that. From my very first phone call with the Crossroads Alumni Department, I stressed the importance of being on top of these issues. I expressed the need to convince the Black members of the Crossroads community, both past and present, that you are committed to fixing these problems. It really bothered me seeing certain members of the Crossroads community not addressing these things until they pretty much had no other choice. I can't really tell you if Crossroads has been performative or not. I do know, though, if we, the group of alumni students taking our time to make things better, were addressed in the same fashion as the Crossroads community at large and other alumni organizations, I wouldn't be in such a position to question that. If you literally treated our situation like you treated everybody else's situation, I would not be saying this shit right now. Anyway, so I'm very thankful, though, for the members of the Crossroads community. You guys know who you are, that have been helpful through this entire process. Any disappointment or concern I've expressed is because I know what Crossroads as a community, as an institution of learning, and as a safe place can accomplish. Let's just get this shit right. I love everybody. Have a great Sunday. Thank you. I don't know who's going next. Sorry.
All good. We want to take a second to share a message from the students that created the Black at Crossroads account. They did not feel safe speaking here at this meeting tonight for fear of retaliation. So we're just going to take a moment to present their statement. And Johanse, whenever you're ready, I think we're going to get into the demands that were presented on the Black at Crossroads page and solutions.
Okay, coming right up. Let me see here. Okay. Okay, everyone. So the moment many of you have been waiting for, the demands, or the essentially, you know, what are the solutions or what are the things that people are asking for? I had a little hand in this with some of the folks at Black at Crossroads, so that's why I'm doing the presenting. So let's see here. So let's center ourselves here. Why are we doing this and what's the point and all that good stuff? So first of all, let's not forget Crossroads is a business, number one. So when you ask yourself why you chose Crossroads or why you would choose a private school, first question you would ask is what makes a private school special? Well, here are a few of them. Smaller class sizes for differentiation, teachers that have skills for kids that are accelerated, social and long-term relationships for the parents and the students, meaning that social well-being is not disconnected from the experience. It is essential. Access to resources for their holistic well-being, the students' holistic well-being, from emotional to physical well-being, something that's going to be academically challenging while still accommodating. And you do want, or you at least are given the impression largely that you want a population diversity. That's important for people being worldly and more nuanced form of learning so that they can learn, respect, and social progress. So diversity is something that is essential and important, and an important feature of a school. So basically what has happened, and this is basically what I can tell you has happened, and I can witness as best as I can get the data as so far, and what has essentially happened from what I've witnessed, especially in the past 20 years. Essentially, class sizes have gotten bigger, but proportionally the diversity is basically the same. So the class of 2020 was approximately 130 students, 14 Black, 10 Latinx, 10 Indigenous, 10 Asian and 1 Indigenous, which is about 27 to 30% students of color. I asked the person that gave me these numbers, does this account for multiracial? And they said yes. So that's the best that I can tell you. The most that I remember, at least even for some of these numbers, I could say that there seems to be 9 more Latinos than I remember, and maybe, I don't know, 5 more folks of the Asian community that I can remember, at least from 20 years ago, but not much of a difference. Most of the diversity is in the sports teams. Therefore, the BIPOC community is still basically the diversity brochure for the marketing. Sports advertises for the school, and many of the players are BIPOC. So you can kind of see the correlation there. What else has happened? 7th grade tank. Black boys often fall into an academic hole. The 7th grade tank is not unique to Black boys. They are just not accommodated quickly. Tutoring. That's usually not, most communities of color especially don't usually seek tutoring before high school. So for POC, that's kind of not normal to get tutoring before high school. A lot of times there's sensitivity around the idea of getting learning disabilities and things like that. But bottom line is that culturally and socioeconomically, getting a tutor is usually a privilege. I don't see the school really accounting for depression or hormonal changes for a lot of these boys in 7th grade. I'm not seeing a lot of emotional support to affirm them in their normalcy. And often I've heard from people that sports are especially encouraged for survival and to get them to the next level of school and to get school paid for, and that their mind is less appreciated. So there's less academic investment. What else has happened? The teacher diversity pretty much remained stagnant for about over 20 years. The maximum teachers of color I've heard anybody mention, and I'm talking to lots of people from 1993 on up to 2020, and lifers from kindergarten to 12th, most maximum teachers of color people seem to have had is about 6 to 8. I was there from 6th to 12th grade, and I had about 6 teachers of color. Let's see, what else? The academic diversity of the curriculum and the depths pretty much remained stagnant for about 20 years. The educational landscape is ripe for change, and Crossroads can lead the way there. What else has happened? Social isolation, bullying, and favoritism seem to continue. These may not be able to disappear entirely, but there's a reason why these ideas of retaliation still persist. I would like to also make sure that it's said that when my own mother said sometime around 7th, 8th grade that she was going to have to stop talking to the administration because she didn't want them to retaliate against her through me. And I thought that was going a little bit far, but here we are today. So demands, why are we calling them demands? People think that's a little bit too strong of a word. Well, quite simply, the future cannot wait until our institutions change course. They will be complicit in the ways that got us to our present. Also, dignity is not something to be leveraged. Financial aid and the opportunity is not something a student who works hard should be manipulated with. Also, support is a two-way street. Crossroads has every right to refuse, but this is also their job. To refuse is to essentially refuse to do their job, and to not do your job for select groups is also called racism. So lastly, in defense of, there's 6 categories that we were pretty much put in the demands: curriculum, discipline, college counseling, academic justice, admin flexibility, and admissions and hiring. So when it comes to the curriculum, the biggest point of debate that I've heard from anyone is the whole Latin requirement. One of the things that was said in there is to eliminate the 7th, 8th grade Latin requirement. Now, often it's said, well, Latin helps you with English, it helps you with Romance languages, it helps you to learn lots of other things. I get that. Well, first of all, let's be clear. Latin is especially useful for the SATs when you had to do a lot more word association. The SATs days have changed. We're only saying to not make it a requirement. Allow kids to diversify their language choices and their cultural knowledge earlier. The earlier they know these languages, the more it adds to their job skills. Also, Latin can double as a world history class. Also, most of the diversity that you learn about the Roman Empire doesn't come until Latin 3. I should know because I did it. Otherwise, Latin and the way that you learn Latin history is very Eurocentric. I also find it a bit of an issue, and I've always felt it was a bit of an issue even when I was younger, the emphasis on slave culture and how much Rome is also admired as part of our, the foundation of our democracy, but we're also making sure that pretty much in the very first chapters of them reading about a Roman family, we meet their slave. Sounds a little bit like an issue that we should really be exploring in more depth. Also, Romance languages are also influenced by other languages. And when other people that I know learn Spanish or other languages, none of them have told me they learned it any faster or any different, but maybe that could be different. Maybe there's a study on that. But again, we're talking about it as a requirement. In defense of discipline, all the demands on discipline, there was no pushback. I guess the main question is what do you do in the case of hearsay? So if someone off campus calls someone a racial slur and nobody was there necessarily to witness it, what do? Well, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure the school could find out. College counseling, there hasn't been any pushback on that, but there's a few things that I'd like to mention. First, I'd like to mention the case of 3 Latina women spanning from 1990 to 2020. Hopefully they won't mind. I know at least a couple of them don't, but we're keeping it pretty obscure. I talked to one Latina woman who's a Crossroads graduate of 1990 who messaged me, who said that Morgan's wife, Christina, who was her college counselor, essentially said that she got into college because she was Mexican. Then I have another alumni, Latina woman from 1998, who's told that she got into her college because she was Mexican. And then we have someone from 2020 with a completely different college counselor also told the same thing. So for some reason, Crossroads seems very fixated on this idea of fulfilling numbers. So if they're looking at college admissions on the idea of fulfilling numbers, I'm a little concerned as to how they look at the admissions of people at the school. We also have Roxanne Zazzaro. So what I'm understanding is that she fired 2 Black college counselors in 2013, which removed a lot of the rapport with the class of 2014. And apparently she also very casually, another alumni was told that that Roxanne has issues with confident Black women. This alumni has a very close relationship with the school, let's just say that. So whether or not these are rumors, whether or not this is speculation, there seems to be a very constant pattern here, which is also why I'm naming some of the people that I'm naming. While these people may not be there now, a lot of that energy seems to still persist. Academic justice, the only point of contention that I've had there is the disclosure of tutors. Why do we talk about the disclosure of tutors? Because mostly the privileged can afford to have tutors. It keeps a level understanding of who has access to help and who doesn't. It also gives a better lens to the academic dishonesty. Integrity agreements are not a bad thing. So if someone is caught for plagiarism or if someone is suspected of plagiarism, then we can easily catch that. Now, other people have said, well, we don't have to. Well, if they're willing to do the work, they'll at least have the safety of not being accused of plagiarism if they say, no, I don't have a tutor. It's also in their best interest. But at the end of the day, help is normal. So the idea of getting a tutor should not be something that people feel embarrassed about. The school should actually encourage help. Administrative flexibility, no pushback there. Most people seem to want or feel that the that the Social Justice and Equity Institute has lots of ideas to put in, and they would like to see them. Admissions and hiring, the demands there, no pushback. Anything else? Well, I do have one last thing, and this probably falls under the idea of discipline and social issues, which is that the school should look deeper into mandated reporting. Just because you come from privilege doesn't mean you didn't come from a difficult home environment. You can come from a wealthy home and still come from a broken home. And so I think that the school should be a little bit more willing to figure out the social welfare also on wealthy families. I think they should be more aware of the money that they're bringing in. Not all money is good money, and that the student needs safety. And so if a student of any kind is having an issue at home, that can end up spilling over onto campus. And so we shouldn't be afraid to say no to certain things or intervene no matter what the situation is, at least to the best of our ability. So with that, I believe that we are opening the floor, and that is all that I have to say for now.
Thank you, Johanse. So we are going to open up the floor. Just a couple guidelines on that. Being that this is a space to honor BIPOC, I want to ask our white allies if they can hold off speaking so that we can preserve the time for people that identify as BIPOC. Those that have RSVP'd, yes, that they would like to speak, could you please raise your hand so that we can get to you first? I think you can physically raise your hand. There is a Zoom feature on the side where the participants are. If you could raise your hand that way so we can see you and get to you, we're gonna try our best. And if you could limit, I believe we're gonna time for 3 minutes. If we have any additional time afterwards, we would love to continue to honor your voice and stories, but we wanna make sure that everyone is heard.
I'll be manning the timer.
I know if Sophia Sears is here, Sophia Sears and Jens, I know that they wanted to talk a little bit.
Yeah, we're here.
Sweet.
The floor is open.
Hello, everyone. First, quickly, I just want to say thank you, Lani, Yohanse, and John. While you guys were speaking, I was thinking it would have been amazing to have you guys around when I was at Crossroads. But no, I think really that's part of the problem, right? Is that at high school, I wasn't able to get that support or acknowledgement. You know, there's no one there telling me what you are experiencing is a problem, you know? Yeah, so I just want to say that quickly, but I'm Jens Astrup. I went by Austin, my middle name, while I went to Crossroads. And yeah, Sophia and I want to talk about our work with the U.S. History curriculum. Sophia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so also again, thank you to Lani. I've just seen the amount of, and all the alumni, but just like the amount of unpaid emotional, intellectual labor in the middle of a pandemic is kind of obscene, and I think needs to really be addressed. But besides that, yeah, so I'm Sophia, also class of 2018. So basically Jens and I, we'll get into it a little bit more, but to sum it up, we sent out this letter to the U.S. regarding the U.S. history curriculum specifically. And this was in the summer, like end of June, I think. And so, yeah, so we'll get into this. And it caused a bit of a stir, and the reception to our letter was very, it was semi-supportive, but it was also very disappointing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think anyone who's in the U.S. history class, especially students of color, can understand. I mean, that curriculum doesn't reflect us, right? And for me, the biggest part that bothered me was the fact that students could walk out of that class not understanding race relations in America at all. You know, students could walk out of that class believing reverse racism, you know. And U.S. history is an important class because it gives us a lens to look at what we're experiencing now, right? And I think Sophia and I just both understood the importance of that, and that's what hurt the most about our experience in the class, is that we walked out without that. And we would still experience racism, you know, despite the fact that we just took a U.S. history course about racism with other white students. So this was a class for us that we both believed in, that had to change, basically, because this class is so important in our education. Sophia?
Yeah, so I'm just going to read a little anecdote from our letter. Our letter is available on Facebook and it's on like all our social media accounts. And essentially what we did is we collected the anecdotes from like a handful, well, more than that. We received a lot of anecdotes actually from mostly BIPOC students and alumni about their experiences in US history. And so I will read a little bit of mine from that just to sum up the kind of feeling of the letter. So regarding the US history class, we spent essentially the entire first semester enmeshed in works deifying and mythologizing the founding fathers, never even any mothers in there. Men who are proclaimed problematic revolutionaries without much knowledge of Black abolitionists, with very little reading of seminal abolitionist theory at the time or accounts of slavery. Black experience is reduced in the 11th grade classroom to pain and very little more than that. As a queer Latinx student, I spent a year writing and reading about and learning to respect, intellectualize with very surface level criticism, white cis straight men. And now, most alarmingly to me, we never learned about the history of the police or the fact that they originated from slave patrols meant as instruments of social control to maintain order over marginalized and working class people. I left high school seeing very little of myself reflected in the one United States history course. I left high school watching students of color being tokenized and made viciously uncomfortable in the classroom, looked to as authorities on the POC experience as if it were monolithic, as if there even was an it. I had to entirely educate myself on the true history of the United States. So that's just a little grain of, you know, this whole compilation of experiences we took from the history courses. And the other, you know, the thing that I think is important here is to talk about is what it was kind of construed as. Like we wrote this as a very open letter and we were very careful. And honestly, we were tone policing, right? Because we wanted to get as receptive a response as possible. So I honestly think, yeah, I think we were holding back quite a lot. I know I certainly was on a lot of the things that I feel like, you know, have kind of lived inside of me that I haven't, I don't think I had the language for it when I was at Crossroads to articulate how honestly just fucked up a lot of the stuff we learned was. And a lot of the kind of, I guess, lack of like, I guess the way that the teachers even taught it and engaged with their own whiteness and such is like gravely disappointing to me. And so, you know, the reception to our letter was disheartening. Jens, do you want to talk a little bit about why?
Yeah, I mean, we met with a lot of faculty members and even some board members. And that was nice. But one thing that we did miss was meeting directly with the U.S. history teachers, which is something we're working on now. And we do have a planned meeting with U.S. history teachers. But basically one thing that we're looking for and one of the first steps is some accountability, you know, and to directly have the conversation with the people that we feel like unconsciously or consciously perpetrated this curriculum violence, you know. And basically that's something that I feel has yet to happen. I feel that we have yet to directly look at someone and say, and talk about how this happened, you know, and the foundations to the violence that's happening in the curriculum at Crossroads. So we had a first meeting, and what was really tough too was the fact that in the beginning of the meeting, we asked if it could be recorded. And of course with Zoom, we got consent from everybody. And then afterwards, trying to get the recording of that meeting, we learned that not everyone there did consent. And that because they didn't trust us necessarily, you know, in lack of better words, with the recording, that we could not access it. And despite whether or not the recording would have helped us necessarily, that those roadblocks are really tough. Just because it's kind of a statement saying that the school isn't supporting us completely in this. And of course, because the pressure is on, the school needs to. Sophia, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, yeah, that's basically sums it up. Just there's been a very severe lack of transparency that we felt, and you know, like a lot of these students of color were willing to, like current students too, not just alumni, like people who have like positions in the school and things to lose, like were willing to regurgitate their trauma yet again for Crossroads, because apparently we haven't done that enough already, and this was the reception to it. And also I just really want to say it wasn't only the faculty that we were, you know, having a difficult time with, it was also quite a few just like community members outside of the history department. Like I was sent some screenshots of like people's faculty members' responses to it, other white alumni, and it was like deeply disheartening, and kind of caused, you know, Jens and I to kind of reevaluate people who we thought we were close with at the school, who we thought respected us, and white teachers who we thought, you know, would understand, and that wasn't the case. And so I think there's just quite a lot of like talking the talk without remotely walking the walk at all. And so that's what we're trying to keep engaging in this. And it's not because we want to take a teacher down or anything. It's because we care about the school, and we would not be doing this unpaid labor in the middle of a pandemic, like I said, if we didn't care about this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
we don't have a lot of time, but quickly, yeah. I mean, basically, we just want to sum up the work that we're doing. And yeah, I mean, just bottom line, we want to make the school a safe space, and we want the entire school to reflect every student, right? I mean, no student should be left behind, like it's already been said. So yeah, that's basically why we started this work. And some next steps, like I said, we're gonna have a meeting with the U.S. history teachers, hopefully later this week or next week. And also we are planning to reach out for support specifically for this work that we're doing. So we're gonna have a form. It hasn't been created yet, but it will be. And it'll be shared on our Instagram, Abolitionists Xrds, correct, Sophia?
Yeah.
That's it, okay.
We're specifically focusing on curriculum violence, and
exactly.
we'll have more of that coming up. Yeah, so thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Next, I see if Iman wants to speak. You are next.
She may not be there now, but I'll check in on her.
Okay. We'll wait on Iman. Miriam, would you like to speak?
Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam Cortez Caceres, and I am an alum from 2013. And first, I just want to thank everyone for being here and for speaking, and I might get emotional, which is fine. So in account to experiencing racism for my skin color and for my racial identity and ethnic background, I think it's also very important to address the discrimination I faced for my social status. When I was in the 9th grade, my parents were both undocumented because of their documentation status, who were taken advantage by our landlord and essentially living in a house that was under construction and left homeless. And we were living in a motel room, and we received support from Crossroads. And fast forward to 12th grade graduation, Bob Riddle in his speech mentions a homeless student and the support Crossroads gave to the homeless student. And I remember feeling as if everyone was looking at me, and even if they didn't know it was me, I just felt so much shame in being kind of elevated as this like success story and tokenized for having had such an awful experience, and to be reminded on such a happy and monumental day of my life was just so awful and triggering. In addition to that, the discrimination I faced from other peers because of my accent and because I couldn't pronounce things correctly, and I couldn't keep up with the curriculum because the schools I attended prior to Crossroads were just not at the level. I felt so ashamed. I had to fix my accent. I had to deny being Mexican because I felt that people hated me, and they did tell me they hated me because I was Mexican. And I think the most important thing to call out is that while I was at Crossroads and facing discrimination there, I was also experiencing severe and horrifying physical abuse at home. And when my grades started failing, my grades started dropping, I started doing poorly in school, I was blamed for it by administration. And though there were some people in administration who believed in me and loved me through it, fingers were still pointed at me, my scholarship was jeopardized, and I was told that I was ungrateful. And while I'm going home and experiencing this extreme physical violence and then going to Crossroads and pretending that everything is fine, that I'm okay, I'm also being put in a situation where I cannot defend myself, where I am not safe, where there are not precautions taken to understand when a child is experiencing abuse or trauma in their household, and instead is being criminalized and accused and just told that, to hear that I was ungrateful while I was going home and experiencing so much horrific trauma is beyond me. And so I hope that in this space, we can take time to understand, and thank you, Johanse, for pointing out that abuse is happening in any household, but to also to stop criminalizing children for their experiences, and to start looking deeper, and to stop pointing fingers and calling them ungrateful. And you know, when your social status and you know, if you're more impoverished or you're on a scholarship, you're more vulnerable. It's important to also understand that that's a lot of power being held against children, and to make them feel more welcome, you can't hold that against them. And I suffered all those years, and that could have been avoided had someone actually listened to me and cared for me. So this is my message to the community. Please listen to children, and please, please, please stop criminalizing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Just gonna go down the list here. Lauren, would you like to speak?
Yes, can you hear me? Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Holland. I am class of 98. I was one of the first 6th grade classes that was brought onto the 21st Street campus. So we were kind of the guinea pig class that was added. I was actually on the wait list for Crossroads for about 4 years. I used to go to Pilgrim School prior to that. So we really wanted me to get into that school. I mean, when I first saw the Instagram post, I mean, not that I did not experience a myriad of situations happening at Crossroads. I was talking to another alum who's a year below me, and he was like, what? And I said, yeah, this is what's going on right now. And, you know, I will say I was hesitant to say anything because there were experiences that I felt yes. Some I didn't, but I feel like what I experienced, especially going back to visit Crossroads subsequently after I graduated in 98, because I was there 6 through 12, that I noticed that as the changing of the guards occurred, that the trends and how the school looked was very different than when I first arrived in 6th grade. To me, there was always an issue with curriculum, yes. You know, that sort of rang true with me in the 6th grade. We were separated from the rest of the campus. So we were across the street, which that crazy brown building across the street, and we had to kind of go across, and we kind of just sort of invaded the school every so often to see these little kids coming over. But, you know, infusing African-American or any type of history that was non-white or non-Jewish was definitely like optional. So when it came, my experience there was a very predominantly Jewish emphasis on everything. So the Holocaust was always regarded higher, all of those things. So trying to infuse African-American history was kind of an uphill battle. I felt like I did have a voice there at certain times I didn't. I'm still just sort of thrown by these horrific stories that I'm hearing. So more so me just getting kind of a learning curve of all of the classes subsequently that came after me. You know, the only thing that I experienced was anything that we had what I considered at that time a race war when I was in the 7th grade, where, you know, to me, I saw a lot of brown faces during those particular years. And to me, I felt a lot of support where I saw a lot of older kids who were African-American or people of color. And it was a very violent time at Crossroads. I don't know if anybody here remembers that or was there, but it definitely was kids jumping through windows trying to get a kid who was actually saying something very racist to me. And it was a very violent time where the whole campus shut down. Everyone was out of class. It was a nightmare. Parents were coming up there. It was a thick sort of situation. But I just want to say, just in short, the stories that I'm hearing, the stories that I've read, I'm really ashamed of. I always thought of Crossroads, and I still do, because I won't take away from the positive aspects that I've had at Crossroads. And this has become a reflective thing for me because, yes, I was outspoken with a lot of other people of color there, and oftentimes I think one administrator referred to me as lippy, you know, as being too expressive or to this or to that. You know, the sort of the sad comedic side of it is that my mother was very well known on that campus. She was very infamous of being up there every 5 minutes up there and beating down the door because she wasn't going to tolerate it. So after a while they said, oh, There's Lauren's mom. She's coming up. She's like, you're absolutely right. I'm coming up here every single time. You're screwing with my kid. So, you know, I felt hurt after a while. There were certain people that were sort of backed off. And I just feel like those who don't have a voice definitely should. So anything that I can do to help, I'm more than willing to do that and put my voice through and whatever I can from the experiences I have there. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jade. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Sorry if I'm not. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
It's Zaid, but thank you. Yeah, it's all good. Thank you everyone for who's spoken. I really appreciate your words. And like Jan said, I really would have appreciated having you guys on campus when we were going there. I'm class of 2018. I currently go to Vassar College. I'm a junior here. Economics major with a prison studies correlate. And pretty much I wanted to share a little bit of my experience as well as ask a big question I've been having. So a lot of work I've been trying to do on Vassar's campus is centered around the endowment. And I know private high schools as well tend to have large endowments, and I'm sure Crossroads is huge. So pretty much I wanted to ask for the board members and other admin who are here for some financial transparency regarding the endowment and where that's going and where our money's going. It's your guys' fiduciary responsibility to represent the families of Crossroads in your financial state, in your financial anything, because Crossroads families are what drives the school and monetarily as well. And so I think that what we're kind of also missing, what we're missing is the monetary aspect of all this. And yeah, that's really all I want to say now. Thank you guys for your words again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Iman. Did you come back? Are you here? No, we can come back to you.
I am back. 30 seconds. Thank you so much. Let me turn on my camera here. Hi, folks. It's really nice to hear from all these voices. You all are really brave. Honestly, excuse me, I'm a little out of breath. I just walked up the stairs. You all are really brave. Honestly, I don't personally have the bandwidth to educate folks on my experiences or on our experiences as Black folks or as people of color. I personally don't have the energy or the emotional ability. So I really honor and celebrate you all for doing that and for championing for all of us. I think it's really special. I think that Crossroads was an incredible place for me in a lot of ways. I now do a lot of things. One of them is I teach meditation, which I became really passionate about, from life skills and learning yoga and, all of that. And I think that Crossroads taught us to be advocates for social justice around a lot of issues. But what I perceive Crossroads to have is really what I would call the Get Out effect. Have you seen the movie Get Out? There's this kind of the message of the film is that you've got folks who are, really liberal and who think that they're very open-minded and, see everyone equitably. But the thing that's a lot more insidious about those kind of communities is that when you perceive yourself to be open-minded and anti-racist and all of this, it's even harder to see the ways in which that you're not. And I was the only Black girl in my class in high school. My best friend was, I believe, the only Mexican girl in our class or Latina girl in our class. And the things that we experienced, the things that I experienced, I wasn't really surprised by. My mother came in when I was in middle school at Crossroads and my mother's an educator and she's retired this year. She's very incredible educator for LAUSD. And she came in and she said, hey, these folks don't really have it right when it comes to folks of color. So I'm going to come in and do a seminar on racial equity and on Black history for the school to help the teachers you know, and the administration do better. And I think it's disheartening to hear that these same issues are still happening now, that, you know, when the N-word was called, when we read Huckleberry Finn in school and everyone looks at me.
Oh. You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I think, you know, it's not surprising to me, really. And I found this in my car where I was, sorry, it's very noisy here, when when you called on me, but I found this article from my class. I don't know if you can see this. I went by John B, my given first name, when I was in high school. And this says, Jammin' with John B. And it says, the only African-American girl in the class of 2004 opens up about her experiences and future plans. And then it says, as we sit alone in this room, I realize I've gone to school with John B for 5 years and I still don't know her very well. She's happy and loud, but who is this girl? Who, and why does she love everyone, including herself? And I think it's just really interesting that, you know, when you think about why someone is notable, the one thing that you think about related to them is their culture, right? And it's like, oh, we have this Black person, or we have this homeless person, or we have this Mexican person. And so I think it's really about seeing the ways in which, like, you're not doing good by having these people there. They're not there for you. They're not there for you to feel good about yourself. They're there for you to learn from as a fellow human. We're all the same. We all have the same, you know, genetic makeup for the most part. We're all human. And so I think it's really just about realizing our blind spots. And the last thing I'll quickly say is Tori Lund and I, who's also an alumni of Crossroads, came up with an anti-racist meditation album using the tools and resources that we learned at Crossroads and applying that together with our perspective. So I'll share that for you all in the chat. I think it'd be a really valuable resource. And I know I'm out of time, so thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you. And now we have Trevon. Next, you can go ahead and unmute.
Where'd he go?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, those who have spoken and those who have not, those who are listening. I am class of 1993. I've been involved with Crossroads since 1989. And to give you a quick story, I apologize if I come off as long-winded. When I toured the school as a 7th grader to enter as an 8th grader, I told my mom that I didn't want to attend because I only saw 4 Black people on campus at the time. You know, we did not go into the high school, so we only saw the middle school, but I didn't want to go. Long story short, I ended up attending, obviously, in 9th grade, and arguably it was the best experience I've had as a student. Crossroads is where I learned to become a student, is where I learned to study, where I learned to express myself. And I'm not knocking anyone's experience. I'm not saying the school does not have issues. I'm not saying the school does not need to improve. Those are facts. But I will say is in the spring of 1993, I converted to Islam. I'm a registered member of the Nation of Islam, and I actually sold the final call on campus. So it pains me to read some of the things that I've read on the Black at Crossroads on Instagram, because that was not my experience. And I'm not dismissing anyone's experience, but I will say as a community, as a BPOC community, we need to do a better job of supporting one another. And most important, what I mean is, I've been a part of the school, like I said, since 1989. If you don't know me, I'm also a basketball coach there, and I've been coaching there since 2000. So that's 20 plus years. And when I coach a game or I attend a game, there's not very many Black people in the stands, and that's not okay. My son will be a senior there, and in his 4 years of being on varsity, there's probably been 200 Black people at his games in 3 years. That's unacceptable. When you go to a theater performance and there's 1 or 2 Black students, Asian students, whatever, participating in theater, We don't go support them as a community. When you go to the baseball games, I played on the baseball team. There was two of us, two black guys on the baseball team, Dan Rapole and myself. There weren't three black people in the stands watching us play. When you go to a soccer game, a soccer match, there aren't black and brown people in the stands rooting and supporting those people. When 21st Street Singers, which I was a member of, when we did a concert, if my mom wasn't there, there was no black person there unless Jasmine Ingram, her parents were there. Those are the things that before we make demands on the school, let's take care of our community first. Let's be there for one another. Let's reach back to the current students as alumni and make sure they're supported. So let's start a true BSU, meaning there's some elders that are taking responsibility and helping these young men and women to become the leaders of tomorrow. Because my son is participating in BSU and there's 5, 6, 7 kids in there in 4 years. That's not okay. But we also as alum aren't teaching them how to do so, how to carry themselves, how to address their issues on campus, how to go to Bob, how to send an email, why to send an email, why do a follow-up, why not support each other. When you walk on campus, and this is over the course since 1989, you'll see us as groups sitting together, but when there's a grievance, we don't address the grievance together. There aren't 20 of us, 10 of us, 7 of us in Bob or Doug's office saying, hey, this is what happened to my peer. I'm here to support him or her. What are you going to do about it?
All right, Trayvon, I hate to cut off, but we got a lot of people waiting. So could we get just a couple more sentences?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I apologize again.
No problem.
So really, let's take care of the house before we step outside of the house. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Just to keep on the thing, I don't know if anybody can hear the buzzer, but I start the timer. If you do hear it, please try to wrap because we got a lot of people waiting. And I think we how much more time do we have? Just
We've got about 30 minutes, but more and more people are popping up. We just want to honor that and honor everyone's Sunday. So with that, Cherokee, do you know who is next?
Yeah, next we have Robin.
Hello, hi, it's very nice to see the Crossroads community. And I have a prepared statement that I'd like to speak, and I'll try to keep it brief and within time. So, good afternoon. My name is Robin Kim, and I graduated from Crossroads in 2018. I went to Crossroads from the 6th grade up until I graduated. It was in the 6th grade, in a class where both a white student and I were dragged out and taken to administration for fighting. The student had been making fun of me for many factors, and I learned from that experience to shut my mouth and never speak up. This other student was also an individual who had established himself because his family was affluent and contributed to the school in many ways. He also had siblings who went to the school. This is why in 8th grade, when a teacher made fun of the change to my name to my legal Korean name in front of my peers, I did not speak up and felt mortified. I want to emphasize that this was not just the white students, however. Every student, including people of color like the teacher himself, laughed. It was truly then I realized how much Crossroads had fostered stereotypes and saw yellowface, exaggerated Asian accents, and mispronouncing names as funny. Throughout my middle school days, I was made fun of for the food I brought to school. It got to the point where I begged my mother to not pack me lunch anymore. It's just bringing instant cup ramen, an acceptable snack to the majority. Started whitewashing myself to fit in, while my mental health and grades slipped into the gutter. When I got into high school, the overt racism seemed to come from more subversive ways, like making fun of the term microaggressions and ignoring the cries from BIPOC students who demanded justice for the experience that they had suffered in the MLK assembly. In my world history class in 2016, the only Asian nations I seemed to learn about were China and Japan. We never learned about the 4 Asian tigers or dragons, or even the Tiger Club economies. Asia is not just China. This oversimplification of Asian culture in my history classes definitely contributed to the distortion of the way we, the Asian community, were viewed at the school. Many white students would often joke or make fun of the students who devoted their lives sincerely to music And I want to emphasize that Asian people are not stereotypes. I will never know the experience that Black people of color at the school experienced. I had heard such things as the basketball team intimidates me, or a teacher expressing for one of my friends to take off his hoodie because she felt she couldn't see him. I want to emphasize to school this: Black lives matter. And you might say that there's a difference in racism to the people speaking, that systematic racism and individual racism is different. You might call out your accomplished alumni and say the system has not kept them down. That's tokenization. That's the problem with pulling a select few from your lists and saying that there's no racism at Crossroads. Your systematic racism fosters individual racism. That is my time. Thank you very much, Crossroads. I want to simply say that people can change if they want to, and that the people in my anecdotes had the capacity to change, and they did. I consider them all intelligent and culturally sensitive people. Crossroads, however, the system that educated them is not. It is time for Crossroads, as one of the leading private schools in the country, maybe even the world, to change. Please lead by example rather than trailing behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Kai.
Hi, I am really going to try to keep this as short as possible because I know some of you might know me and I could spend an
Kai,
hour session.
we can't hear you very well. It's very staticky.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Much better. You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna try to keep this short because I could spend a whole 3 hours talking about this. I played an extremely active part in the Crossroads community during my 7 years there. Like from the moment I got into the school, I was extremely passionate about it. I was flexing my Crossroads shirt at my elementary school, letting everyone know I was going to this amazing arts and sports school. But throughout my time at the school, while I did learn so much and was able to grow into the person I am emotionally and mentally and in every way, part of the reason for that growth was traumatic experiences that I had to learn from in this space. It was really surprising to me when Johanse brought up that part about 7th grade students, because I myself had that exact same experience and I had no idea that it was actually as common as it was. I should not even have graduated from Crossroads because of a number of different things, but including in 7th grade, I had no credit in every class that I had. Some of my teachers are in this chat watching me say this and know that I was failing every single class and mentally I was not there. And I didn't really have that type of relationship with the dean at the time because I and many other students did not really feel comfortable with her. But that was just, it started a wave of different moments throughout my time at Crossroads that only really got worse in high school. In high school, I became a member of student council and eventually became the president, which gave me a really unique perspective of being able to work with the admin while being a student. And what that taught me more than anything was the fact that Crossroads was primarily working as a business instead of as a school. A lot of admin were working from the point of view of making more money. And especially Roxanne Zazzaro, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of what happened, but her leaving to go back to see her family was one of the best things that has happened to Crossroads in a long time. Because working with her was one of the most difficult and just it was almost a horrible experience. And yeah, I wish I was able to really thoroughly break down everything that I have been talking about, but I've also been at a point where I have often tried to be an optimist about the school. I try to support it in every way I can, but like at this point, I'm just completely done with it. And like, honestly, I had to take a step back from being involved in a lot of this because it was like really draining to me. And I just am glad that I'm in college away from this community.
Kai, we have to call time now.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Who we got next?
Thank you, Kai. Next, we have Magnus.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? All right. I'm Magnus, a current student at Crossroads, sophomore, and it's really crazy because I had Johanse as a tutor in 7th grade, and I was failing all of my classes as well. So it's really powerful for me to go right after Kai because it emphasizes how many people of color go through this. In 8th grade, I was failing nearly all my classes, and if not, I had 76s because everything that everybody has said today is so true, and it all correlates because Crossroads shows itself as a community, which is why a lot of people want to go there. But in the end, they're just another institution. But they're an institution that feels like they're a community because of the things that they have written and they've put on their wall. So they believe that they are a perfect community when they are just another institution that will eventually fall behind farther than they already are due to just because it's so hard to say this because there are people on this Zoom who are a part of the school and community. It's just so hard to talk about. It's not a safe space. It's an institution, and that's about all they are. They want to present themselves as more, but they're just a failing institution. And I really hope that they recognize this through all of these people. And all that I really wanted to do right now in this moment is show them that there is a full link and all of it is linked together. And it's all, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my words right now. I just need them to see that everything, they really have to take initiative, because if they don't, it's over for them. The school will fail completely, and they will take children down with them. Children will fail because of what they decide to do. They have to make the right choices right now, tomorrow, not even next month, tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Magnus. For time's sake, we're going to take these last 5 people and then see where we're at. Not to like cut anybody off in this space, but we just want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So next we have Brendan, and then we'll have Jordan, Malika, Amelia, and Aaron.
All right, thank you. For those of you that don't know, my name is Brendan Terry. I'm from the class of 2021, graduating this year as a senior. And basically, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all you guys doing this, because sometimes you just kind of forget like how bad it might be. Because I remember in 10th grade, I was talking to someone that wanted to transfer in, and he's all like, and he wanted to transfer for basketball. And he was saying, oh, like Crossroads is a hood school, right? And I'm all like, what do you mean a hood school? And he goes, like a lot of black people in the basketball team, like a lot of black people go to the school. And I was thinking to myself, well, one, just a lot of black people don't go there, doesn't make it a hood. And 2, no, it's not like that. And I remember reminding myself in 7th grade before I came, I was telling kids I'm going to Crossroads, and they're saying, why would you want to go there? It's all white people. Like, no one of your color is going to be there. And the first class I sat in there, I looked around. There was not a single like black person inside. It was just a class full of white people, and I felt alone. And then I translated into 9th grade English. And for me, the teacher was saying in the book, it's okay to say the N-word. I was the only black person in that class. And I was like, I didn't want to speak up because I felt uncomfortable. I felt alone. And I was like, I just wanted to let it go. I was just lucky that I had a few classmates that were like, no, this is not okay. Like, no, we shouldn't be doing this. And it got backlash. And the teacher fought it, but they ended up just agreeing not to say it. But for me to be the only, not only black person, but person of color in multiple classes, and if I do have another person of color is just one person, it's just really uncomfortable for me. And I just feel like these demands of having more people of color is really important. I just really want to say thank you to like Cherokee, Johanse, and everyone else that's out here really putting in time and effort to make a change, even though they don't go to the school anymore.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brendan. Next we have Jordan Gunn.
I just want to start off by thanking Lani, Cherokee, Yohance, everybody who's been involved with this Zoom and this program. But just to start off my personal statement, as you can see, I'm a Black teenage boy, and that alone in this country already gives it sets a lot of standards for myself. So not only do I have to do the normals, have good grades, maintain a decent social life, all that kind of stuff. In the outer world, I also have to make sure I'm doing the right thing, which in terms means I'm okay. Like, I'm still alive. I'm not on the run from police. I'm not being afraid of the police. I have to deal with that on an outside circumstance. But then when I come to school, I not only have to go through these certain topics, kind of what Brendan was saying, where, the N-word is kind of debated on whether or not it can be used in educational purposes or not. But then also in certain assemblies, I'm kind of looked to speak on Black issues. For example, with the George Floyd assembly last year and an after-school assembly related to a Zoom bombing that happened on the first day of school, first week of school. I spoke out, but then later on, we were broken down to little breakout rooms, and I noticed that I was one of maybe 2 Black kids in the breakout room. And it's just something I've really noticed, and I've been in a lot of conversations with. Why is it that Crossroads can sacrifice the emotional well-being of Black students such as myself for the sake of the education of my white counterparts? Why is that allowed? Why is that, I guess, a thing? So that's my perspective.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I think that's a fantastic question for everyone to leave this meeting with. Malika, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for putting this together. Malika St. Till, class of 2013. I graduated with Cherokee and with Amelia, who's going to be going next. So thank you guys so much for your effort and your work. I think it's awesome. But the one thing I wanted to call out that Lani actually highlighted that I thought was super powerful for me was some of the racist impact that happens in the Crossroads Theater program. And I was a part of Crossroads Theater for most of my time at Crossroads, and I actually discontinued my journey with the theater program in the 11th grade. And the reason for that was because of my personal experience of discrimination and feeling as though I wasn't given the opportunity for roles that I felt I deserved. And that I got a lot of great feedback on from peers, from teachers, from parents and faculty. And so what I think some really great low-hanging fruit could be, if anybody on this call is currently to change these things, would be representation is huge. I never saw examples of Black actors. I never knew the impact that Black actors had on theater as it exists, or on the entertainment industry as it currently exists. Another thing would be education about the racism that existed in theater and that kind of made theater what it was. Didn't know about blackface until I graduated from Crossroads. Never heard about that and was part of the Crossroads theater program for quite a while, from 6th grade up through 11th grade. So those are just a couple of things that I would love to call out. Thank you guys again so much for putting this together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. Amelia, you are up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Amelia Delgado Hines, class of 2013, like Malika was saying, with several of us on here. And yeah, I guess I wasn't entirely planning on speaking, but I can only speak to my own experience, and I don't necessarily have a crystallized message. I can only know a few truths that I've realized about my experience at Crossroads, because I think for a lot of us it's taken several years to process and think about, but all I know is that I had to navigate my own confusion around my intersecting identities all on my own, and that I would have benefited a lot from having a mentor who truly understood me and could guide me as a young brown mixed girl. And I would have benefited a lot from learning about mass social movements of brown people in the US. I would have benefited from learning the history of people like me to give me any sense of context and a sense of self. And I would have benefited from being validated in my Spanish and my lived experience as a bilingual person within the formal Spanish classroom. These things have really persisted in my psyche. And I'm now, we're now 25, the class of, 2013, and like, I'm still processing some of these things. And it's not even like my experiences are as grave as some of the experiences of other students, and certainly of the Black students at Crossroads and Black alumni. But all I know is that I believe that these needs and others just were not met by the pedagogy at Crossroads, and that they have stunted me, at least in my own personal emotional growth, and it's taken a lot for me to overcome them. So
thank you,
Amelia. Next we have Aaron.
All right, Cherokee, I hope you're meaning Aaron Simon. This is me. So I'm Aaron Simon. Back then I was known as Aaron Irving, and I'm the class of 1995. I started at Crossroads in the 7th grade, and like many of the other Black alumni who spoke today, I did not want to go to Crossroads because it was predominantly white. And I did not see many students of color who were at Crossroads. That girl coming from South Central Los Angeles, being around, Black peers my entire life and family, I felt it would be a little bit awkward. And I can tell you, was very difficult for me, all right? So I remember being met with racial epithets that were carved into bathroom stalls and walls, being told I was too proud. And like Lauren, I believe I had a very strong, outspoken mother who did not tolerate these sayings, these thoughts, and had some conversations with some of the teachers at the school sites. But what I can tell you, and the reason for me telling my story today, please know, is it's not to minimize any of the stories that I heard today, because I'm truly empathetic and sympathetic towards those who are courageous enough to speak out, and also to hear your stories, right? They are disturbing in so many ways. But I can tell you that when I went to Bob Riddle, when I went to Dr. Paul Cummings, right, they made it known that such racial epithets or just racism in general would not be condoned. So it's very hard for me to hear that, right, some of those things have changed throughout the years. I know I may be considered one of the old guards. I'm a little bit older than many of you guys on this call today, and I appreciate hearing many of the young folks speak today and speaking their truth and reality. But I can tell you that it was not condoned. So I'm willing, as part of that alumni, to be a part of that conversation and be a part of that healing process, because I believe that there are still some good people at Crossroads who are willing to hear what you have to say, and who are willing to work with you. And I'm happy to see that they're here today. I'm happy to see, you know, that this big gathering of people to hear and make change. But like you, I believe the time is now. The time is right now, right, to make those changes. So just know that I'm here. I know I'm a busy person, just like many of the folks on the Zoom call today, but I am more than willing to lend my voice, to lend my breath, to help you all with this work. So I see it as something that is beyond important. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have James Warner.
Hi, guys. I also wasn't planning on speaking, but hearing everyone else speak has really inspired me. I'll get into it. I'm one of the mixed race students from Crossroads, one of the ones that probably is lumped into the Black category because it's an extra number for that demographic. As a white passing mixed person, I was given access to more social groups than my darker skinned peers. I was accepted into those. And when it was found out that I had Blackness in my blood, I became the go-between, the kind of messenger, from white to Black relations, especially in the theater community. I don't really feel comfortable sharing some of the negative and racist experiences I had at the school, of which there were many. But I wanted to say there needs to be acknowledgement of Black families and parents at the school. My mom was extremely involved in my elementary school's board. She is the most phenomenal person on the planet. She can help institutions. Her family was educators, Black educators, who started the Head Start programs, who started centers in Watts, so that so that people in the community were given access to mental health clinics and therapists. And all I'm asking, and I know it's tough because there's not social gatherings right now, but just invite us to things. Please let us come to your gatherings. Please, my mom wants to say something too.
So just, I wanted to just add, I went to private institutions myself. My sisters and I were the only people of color in in almost our entire schooling through 12th grade. I wanted to let you know that as much as things have remain the same, what is different is that there are all of you here together. And that's very, very powerful. I too have a very insider-outsider experience that has allowed me to be the sister-in-law of one of the board members, as well as a person who had to be paid attention to because of certain friends and how do you know. And I think that's a shame on many levels. I think that in order to be heard, you have to have an alliance. And I feel that that is something that is also needing to change at Crossroads, as it does at many institutions. So I think the most powerful alliance that I am witness here today is that of yourselves with each other. And it is very, very difficult. I understand the emotional labor that you guys are experiencing, and I really appreciate your sharing that. It feels a little bit difficult to be paraded out and have that be the only way that someone takes you seriously, and then to be questioned and called out about the fact that you are emotional. It's a catch-22, but it's also just, excuse me, but it's just fucked out. So I would really like you guys to just appreciate the fact that you are here together, that you have this family. As my son said, we have a lot of history with educational systems, and we know the private school sector really well. And if there's something we can lend our voice and our weight to, we'll be happy to.
Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes left, so I just wanted to do a check-in on where we're at with Lani and Cherokee in terms of where we're going to go from here.
So Lani, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 3 more people that we'll let speak, and we might be right at time, if not like a minute or 2 over. Yeah, what do you think?
After those 3, we're gonna cap it, and I'm gonna do a closing, but I'll let Cherokee call out the next 3.
Perfect. So next we have Amber, and then we'll have Benjamin, Terry, and Nora, or you're gonna end it for us.
Hello, everyone. My name's Amber. I'm a mother of a 12th grader at Crossroads right now, and a woman of color, mixed race woman. And I really did not have something planned to say because I have so much I could say. I want to thank everyone for sharing, and I think this is very promising that we're all coming together. I will add that I have experienced issues within the administration surrounding matters pertaining to identity and students of color, and how to support students of color in reference to their identity, and how the staff interacts with them, and what we can do to make it a better experience, because I do know that some children of color, as all children do, struggled. But in particular, race-wise, there were struggles that I saw that caused me great concern about the emotional development and then the lifelong trajectory of where some of the students would end up if situations that happened on Crossroads were not addressed, situations between faculty and students. So I just want to, raise my hand and say I bear witness to having seen many of the things that were brought up in sacred space that were shared by children that they struggled with. I have seen those things. I've heard those things happen. I've had things said to me that were alarming to me about African-American history in relation to the identity of Black children and the way we raise our students and teach our students and our children. But one example, I mentioned Jim Crow as a part of how complex identity was and how children of color relate to their surroundings at school when being constantly confronted by the history of their people. And I was making the point to draw attention to a young woman who was very hurt by being reprimanded about a paper she wrote about her identity. And when I brought up Jim Crow as a subject matter to say, hey, Black identity, this is something very close to it, and it gets complex. But the administrator at the time said to me, so now we've gone from this student's essay to Jim Crow. I don't really get it. And I was speaking to him about my own child, but also the child of a friend, and an essay she wrote about her racial identity and how that essay was not appreciated or seen for what it did bring, but criticized and diminished in a very cold, I don't know, I won't even say wannabe academic because I don't want to give it that much credence. I don't really want to put too much truth to that, but I saw from watching the way she was treated that when I took it to the administration and what I heard back from the gentleman is no longer at the school, but what I heard back showed me when he said, what is this? Now we've gone really far off topic. What does her essay have anything to do with Jim Crow? It showed me, okay, there are some things that need to be worked on. And this is why this has happened with this young woman, because, you know, one of the leaders at the school, one of the key administrators, does not understand the relationship between identity of one's current identity and that of the history from which they come. And I just wanted to bring some light to that, but also to say I love the Crossroads community, and all of you students that spoke up and you alumni, I just think you're amazing. I wish I had my thoughts more together. But I do bear witness to what you were talking about. And I also know that there are good things, but that does not negate people's experience. So here I am, I'm Amber. If anyone wants to shout out, I'm here to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amber. Next we have Benjamin Terry.
What's up, everybody? I'm Ben Terry, class of 2018. My brother just spoke before. He's a senior at Crossroads now. And I just want to talk about my experience. I just want to talk about my experience on the basketball team. I was part of the state championship team in 2018. I was a starter on that team. Prior to that, our junior year, we had a verbally and physically abusive coach. A lot of the players, like a lot of the school didn't know what was going on. It was really mysterious. It created kind of like a bond between the players, you know, just off of that shared experience that was kind of unbreakable. Going into that next season, the state championship year, we only lost 3 guys from the previous team, so we were all still really close. And before the season had started, our coach told us that somebody from administration told us that we needed to like reach out to the school more and hang out with like all the other people if we want to play in better tournaments. And it got me thinking, like, would they do that to say like the ME program? Would they do that to the theater program? Like, if somebody's good at something, right, and they like live and they do that, would you really tell them like, oh, you guys are in the theater program, you guys only do theater, you're not going to be allowed to have any more performances because you don't hang out with enough people at the school? Oh, you're in the ME program, you do too much violin, so you can't hang out or you can't do as many performances. Like, I feel like there was kind of like that double standard that was kind of like really messed up. For me personally, like, I played basketball, played baseball, jazz band, like I won multiple awards with Crossroads. And, you know, I feel like I feel like I'm speaking for my teammates here, but I know a lot of them, like, they come from like different backgrounds, you know, and like the thing that they're good at was basketball, and that's what they did. And like, I feel like Crossroads, instead of like trying to take that away from them, telling them, oh, you have to go try other things, like at the same time, like, do what you're good at, you know what I mean? And like, you should be allowed to do that, and you shouldn't be, you know, in trouble for that. So I don't know, that's just my thing. Like, I feel like people just shouldn't be like forced into like certain roles, but yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. And then last but not least, we have Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora, I'm a senior. And all I want to say is, first off, this is an amazing event. So thank you to all the alum who have, you know, spent time putting this together. And everyone's spoken so eloquently today. I just, speaking to all the Crossroads faculty and admin who's here today, I really, really hope you have listened to everything that's been said and actually really heard it, and also understood that the point of this isn't, oh, here are some alums and their stories from the past, but that the reason everyone's here sharing is because we care and we want to see change, and because this is still happening, as everyone has said. So I just really hope if you work at Crossroads, you are hearing this and understanding that this is about what's happening right now and how we can make it better moving forward.
Thank you, Nora. I'm really just speechless, and I want to thank everyone for not only being here, that took the time to show up, to Cherokee, Mir, Hassani, Johanse, John, that have helped make this happen. I'm so grateful for you all. To the parents, to the students, to everyone that shared, and to the people that haven't shared, we are here with you and we see you, and we're so thankful for everyone here. Before I wrap up, I did want to give the board an opportunity if they would like to respond to Zaid's comment. I would really like to hear that now instead of an email statement. So if anybody from the board wants to speak, I would like to hold some space for that if you guys would like to take it.
Is Bob Friedman on the thing? He's the chair of the board.
Bob is on the call. I do see him.
Not Bob.
Lani,
I can hear you, Bob.
well, I'm not the current chair right now, Lani, but I think it's a question that needs to be thought about and to give it a coherent answer to the question that's asked. And I don't think right now is probably the right time, but I certainly think it's something that we can be prepared to answer.
I'm sure. Thank you. That was really everything I needed to see. So with that, I'm just going to close. Wow. I'm just going to close with a couple quotes. Oh, man. So I do believe we have some Cummins family members in here, and I believe Roger Weaver is in here today. So in closing, if you don't mind, I'd like to pull up two quotes that, you know, Paul has said and Roger, both that I've sent to in an email to Bob, and I'd like to share them with you today. They're taken from a 2009 Vanity Fair article where Crossroads was profiled, and if you haven't read it, I highly suggest you do. So when asked about concerns that Crossroads fundamentally has changed by parents, Mr. Weaver replied with this. Roger, we're really concerned that Crossroads isn't the way that it used to be, and after we leave, it's just going to get lost. And I say, sorry, my screen is going. You don't think it's the way it used to be, huh? You're absolutely right, it isn't, and a damn good thing too. Institutions, like individuals, have to evolve and change, or else they get stuck. And Mr. Cummins on the same matter added, you can stay funky, but at some point you wind up not serving your kids very well. If you are not willing to adapt, grow, look at your history, the way Crossroads has failed and traumatized students, then you, the administration, the faculty, and the board must step down or step up to the challenge and be the institution so many of us want you and wanted you to be. I really want to emphasize again that we've left some resources in the chat, as these are highly emotional conversations, and I really think it's important to protect your well-being right now. I want to thank everyone again for coming. This has been more than I could have ever imagined, and I'm just really grateful that you all took the time to be here. So thank you so much, and with that, have a really wonderful night.